think with you tonight about this concept of friendship and what it can offer us and what the Torah teaches us that its value could be. So to do that, we are going to go back to the beginning. We're going to look at Breshit. Give me 1 second while it says host disabled attendee screen sharing. So let's fix that. Is it up now? Oh, now I'm the host. Okay, look at that. Okay, someone's gonna have to write about power in the age of Zoom and how easily it gets transferred. Okay, so here's the doc. Would you like me to put it in chat and then you could download it? Should I do that? Dina, is that?
Put it in chat, but I think it's also, okay, whatever is easy.
Okay, you know what, I'll do it afterwards in case anybody wants.
Yes, if you give it to me afterwards, I could give it to people to be able to, you know, you could put it in chat and then I'll get it from you afterwards. That's fine.
Okay, the one danger of putting the screen share up is that now I only see 3 faces. So I'm going to teach with total and utter imagination that I can see you and I know that you're listening or you're not listening. No pressure if you're not. But if there's something that you want to say, please, I don't know, chat Beverly.
Chat me.
Beverly, and I can see Dina and then you can stop me. Okay, I'm gonna talk and then I'll stop. So we'll have time for conversation. All right, so if we look in the beginning, we look in Breshit, and I you know, as Rosh Kehilah mentioned, I've been teaching at SIR for 10 years, and I teach Breshit almost every year, and I can't really think about any issue apart from the opening prakim. It's just, there's just so much in these opening prakim that has to teach us really about who we are as human beings and who we can be as human beings. And within that, there is also great wisdom about what it means to live in community with companionship. And for tonight, I'm going to call it friendship. So we're going to do something a little funny. We're going to ignore gender for a moment, but I'm going to, I guess, borrow from Rav Soloveitchik and what he does in The Lonely Man of Faith when he analyzes these first 2 prakim. When he talks about human beings, he calls them Adam 1 and Adam 2, and he kind of ignores Eve. And when he talks about companionship, it's not about a love relationship. It's about connection between people. So here's what I want to say. If you look very briefly at Perek Aleph and Perek Bet, Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, you see 2 really different visions about what it means to live with the other. Perek Aleph, in the bolded pasuk, this is in the middle of the glorious psukim that tell us about who we are vis-a-vis the rest of the world, or who we might be, should I say, vis-a-vis the rest of the world. And the Torah says, Vayivra Elokim et ha'adam b'tzelmo, b'tzelem Elokim bara oto, zachar u'nekeva bara otam. Okay, this is the pasuk that we want to put everywhere because, again, just to come back to gender for a moment, this is the grand pasuk of equality. But remember, we're not talking about gender tonight. So instead, what we see in this pasuk is the awareness that to be created in the image of God, for all the possibilities of what that means already from the get-go that you as an individual are living together with another individual. There is no way to capture or encapsulate the essence of being Adam, of being this creature who's created with aspects of God or with the aspirations to act like God without situating this being in community. So as the Rav says, chapter 1 gives us this vision of a kind of natural community, right? It is easy and it's an obligation. We can't think of ourselves apart from relationships with the other. That's chapter 1. Okay. And I would say that for some of us at some points of our life, that bears true. We can't see ourselves apart from living in community. And when we're blessed with relationships and friendships that flow easily and maybe even feel like an extension of ourselves, we feel like chapter 1 human beings. We're human beings who are embedded and enmeshed within those relationships. And then there's chapter 2. Chapter 2 is unfortunately the chapter that more people remember when it comes to the story of the creation of woman. This is of course, the rib story. This is when 12th graders come to Breshit and they read chapter 1 and they say, wait a second, what do you mean? Zachar u'nekeva at the same time? Wasn't there like the break and the process? And oh yeah, that's chapter 2, right? So when we get to chapter 2, we see actually, and I cut it off, I'm sorry, I didn't include the pasuk, but this is pasuk Yudchet about the beginning. It's in the middle of the story when man has already been around, and at a certain point, when man is already placed in Gan Eden and given his mission, suddenly God says, Lo tov hayot adam levado, right? Which we're going to come back to in a minute. What does that really mean? Why is it not good for man to be alone? I will make for him, I'll just use the English here, a fitting helper. Again, remember, we're not going to the gender root. But God announces in this pasuk, there's a possibility for a human being to exist on his own as a solitary figure. And then there is a moment in which this person needs to find companionship, needs to be led, actually, to the recognition and the realization that it's not good for him to be on his own. Notice that this is God speaking. This is not Adam speaking, right? When my students first hear this pasuk, they all say, well, of course, he would be so lonely. I mean, how could anybody live in the world by themselves? Never mind the really lonely aspect of being totally alone, right? But no, this isn't human being. Man doesn't realize. He's fine. This is God saying, Lo tov hayot adam levado. And what follows in the psukim, of course, is that Hashem creates the animals, brings them to Adam. He names them. And in the process of naming them, seeing the other, which is the animal, recognizing that he has no suitable companionship with any animal, only afterwards down here, right, in these psukim, does Hashem actually put him to sleep and out of his own body create the possibility for him then to wake up and look at this creature and say the most glorious words, Zotapam, etza me'atamayu basar mibsari. Aha, I now see in this other being who is so other and yet so connected. And this is not meant to be, oh yes, because she's of his physical body. No, etzem ubasar in the Torah means relative, right? He sees the possibility that here is a creature with whom he can build a family, right? So in a very kind of cursory way, what we see here is a lot of things that we're ignoring, but what we see here is that the concept of companionship or connection, or dare we say friendship, is a process. The Torah recognizes in chapter 2 that it's not obvious for human beings. It's not easy for human beings to live together with others as if there's no other way. Chapter 2 actually gives us another model and acknowledges, and this is helpful to me in pandemic times, it's really hard to form connections. It's really hard and difficult, and it takes effort. And you might feel that sense of rupture and distance, and only after great effort feel that sense of connection. Okay, so here's argument number 1. The Torah gives us 2 ways, just from the very beginning, to think about ourselves in community. Part of us, at ease, totally natural, can't see ourselves any other way. Part of us has to work our whole life to develop those friendships and those connections. Halavai, we should feel when we look into another person's eyes, here I see myself mirrored in you in the most beautiful way. That's the greatest hope, right? And the Torah, I think, here is saying that this is possible. This is not just about a romantic union. This is about what it could mean when you really connect with another person. Okay, but now there's a little bit more that I want to share with you about the lo tov, that moment at the very beginning up here in the beginning of this section, pasuk Yudchet in Perek Yud. Lo tov. What's lo tov? Why is it not good? Even according to the logic of this chapter, why is it not good for man to be alone? So if we were in SAR, I'm going to cry just thinking about it, being in the classroom, right? Somebody would say, like I mentioned, well, it's not good because he would be lonely. And loneliness, that's true, they generally mean, or I don't know what you would say tonight if I would ask you what you think, but there's an aspect of loneliness that's, just practical, right? If man is supposed to be, as we see from Perek Aleph, not only having children, but, physically and intellectually, growing and being able to be this kind of caretaker of the whole world, that's too much for one person, right? So on a practical level, human beings need others in order to achieve their own goals. But if we actually think about loneliness from another perspective, it's not just practical in terms of accomplishment. It's also practical in terms of what does it mean to really be in the world all on your own, to feel as if you are in the world all alone. So that's one idea that we see here from the Psukim. Lo tov means, or if I flip it around, companionship offers a possible redemption from a feeling of loneliness. Let me say it again. Companionship or connection, according to Perek Bet, is the antidote to that reality, that possible reality that we all filter through, and maybe now more than before, that we're lonely, right? And that when we're on our own, we sometimes really feel like we're on our own. And the Torah is saying to you, that's true, that's part of being a human being. But if you can form a connection, right? If you can have this kind of friendship, it will rescue you from that sense of loneliness. And look how beautifully it's put. V'davak v'hayu lebasar echad. It's a total redemption. It can be a total redemption from a sense of aloneness and loneliness. So that's one possibility. And we're going to see that in root. Okay, we're going to see that in root. Here's the second possibility. Look at Rashi. Very famous Rashi, very hard to understand. Two possible ways of explaining it. Rashi says, lo tov. Why is it not good? Shelo yomru shetei rishuyotein. HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'elyonim yachid ve'ein lo zug. V'zeh b'tachtonim ve'ein lo zug. Okay, so that others won't say, why is it not good? It's not good because, it's not lo tov because of what we said before, loneliness or practicality. You know, according to Rashi, what is the threat is that others might say about human beings, he is yachid, he is singular, batachtonim, in the lower realms. God is yachid in the upper realms, and without saying any more, right, there's like an equivalency. Shtei rushiyot, two powers. Now, everybody, when they read this Rashi, they say, who's the they in this concern, right? Didn't we just say he's the only one? So this is not meant to be taken literally. This is not an actual concern in the moment of Perek Bet Pasuk Yud Chet. This is a conceptual Rashi. And what Rashi's saying here is that embedded in the reality of being a human being is the capacity for us to misperceive ourselves and to see ourselves as more than we are. And the reason why we fall into that trap is because we are yachid. Because we are so powerful, because we are so creative, because we are created b'tselem Elokim, and there is so much potential in each of us, but we can easily fall, God forbid, into the trap, which now I'm going to show you can be read in two ways. Either total arrogance, right? That's one way of reading Rashi. Arrogance of the highest order, to actually see ourselves as gods, and we don't need to look very far to see examples of where that has happened in human history, current times included. And or there's another way, which might even resonate more for us right now. What's the misperception that we could have? Not necessarily arrogance that we're so great, but the arrogance that we are self-reliant. As my friend Shuli Talbas called this is the threat of omnicompetence. And I think a lot of us fall into that category. I'm okay. I can do it all. I can make all my own food. I can take care of all my kids. The list goes on, right? And what happens when we do that, right? We can do a lot, Baruch Hashem, and we're all doing more than we ever did and finding skills and tools that we didn't even know we had. But there's a threat there. There's a threat that if you find yourself becoming omnicompetent or seeing yourself as omnicompetent, it is a kind of form of arrogance. And it puts you in a position where not only are you seeing yourself as a kind of God, but you're armored up. And then you can't actually lean into the joy of somebody helping you, of somebody actually being there for you and helping you become better. If you don't let anybody help you, you never learn from your own mistakes because you're in this fortress of self-reliance. See what I'm saying? Two possibilities here within Rashi. Okay, let's just review and then we'll go to the Shavuot part. So the Torah is saying to us, first of all, it's complicated. Part of us is at ease in relationship. Part of us has to work our whole life. The second thing we're noticing within Perek Bet is that there are twin threats that friendship and companionship can come to alleviate. Threat number one is the terrible, terrible feeling of loneliness. And threat number two is the possibility of arrogance / overly self-reliant feeling, both of which are warped self-understanding as a human being. Okay. So here we have now, how much time do I have? Can I go a little while longer? 6 minutes?
Yeah.
I have 6 minutes. Okay, I'll take them.
Thank
So part two, we're going to look at very quickly, and I would encourage you to look at them more closely when you have time with your family, because there's much more that you will see that I won't be able to look at with you tonight. So I want to suggest that Megillat Ruth gives us a very explosive example of the first threat, the loneliness threat, and how friendship can serve as an antidote. And I want to just say what is obvious that we all know. Those of us who are blessed to be mother-in-laws or to have mother-in-laws, we know that it is a complicated, often beautiful, but very unique kind of relationship. And it's awesome that the Torah features this relationship as the model from which we draw so much about human relationships. So way back in the beginning of Ruth, you remember this, of course, when Naomi is ready to go and she's trying to push her daughter-in-laws from coming with her. And they say, no, 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 we're coming. And she says, no, 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 you can't. And then she makes this very elaborate, logical argument, right? Like, let's just say tonight, I got married. Tonight, I conceived. I had a baby. What? You're going to wait? I don't know how long they waited then. 14 years, 15 years, 16 years, 18 years. That's not possible. Shovna benotai. Shovna. Go home. Go home. Now, I have to tell you that I've, like all of you, I've read this Megillah many, many times. And this year I saw something that I never saw before. It's over here in the first bold. After that long, very, very sad demonstration of how little she has to offer them, she says here, Al benotai, ki mar li ma'od mikem, ki atza biyad Hashem. She says to her daughters-in-law, I'm going to ad-lib a little bit here, but I know you're suffering. I know that you have losses, but here's the thing. My suffering is so much worse than yours. Yatsa biyad Hashem. First of all, from a theodicy perspective, she says, God was punishing me. You're just part of the consequences. Your suffering is not because God is trying to communicate with you. You just got caught up in the wrong family. But Marli ma'od mikem. My suffering is so bad, it's so much worse than you. Now this is, and I'm not judging here, this is Memorial Day, right? Grief is the worst loneliness there can be. And to grieve is to feel that, right? But what she does here in this moment, she basically says, I am creating like a moat right here. You can't come to my suffering. You can't touch me. You can't be here. I am totally alone in my sadness. Now, anybody who's normal, and we've all been in that position, when somebody pushes you away like that, you run away. You run away, because what are you going to say? She just told you that there is no reaching her and there is no understanding her. But Ruth, the Ruth davkaba, of course, that's the same word we just saw in Breshit, right? When Ruth reaches out to Naomi, what she does is staggering, because what she says here in the very famous line that's also bolded, when she says, I will go wherever you will go. My God is your God, right? Your God is my God. Your nation is my nation. What she's saying to Naomi is, I know that you feel so lonely that you have no bridges to anybody else. But I want to tell you something. I want to be there with you. I see value in the place that you're at. Don't cut me off. Don't create that fortress. Don't create that moat. I can be with you. And you're going to say to me, if you weren't muted, you would say, okay, that's beautiful, but it doesn't actually work, because what happens in a few psukim later, right? They show up, and when she introduces herself, she still uses that word mar, right? She still says, don't call me Naomi. My life is so hard and so bad. Okay, but you know why? Because when somebody is so lonely, it takes a really long time. It takes a really long time until Ruth is able to really establish for Naomi that she is on her side, and she is with her. And eventually, by the end of the Megillah, we could turn this another way, but for tonight, we'll turn it this way. By the end of the Megillah, they're so aligned, you don't even know whose kid it is. right? They're so aligned. They're sharing the same faith that at the end, it's like, wait, did Ruth have the baby? Did Naomi have the baby? Who's nursing? Who's holding? Who's naming? Right? I think seen in this light, it's a testament to the power of what Ruth was able to offer Naomi. Okay, this is very quick, but it's okay? Okay, here's the last idea. And this is also so connected to Shavuot and your community and what we all can do in the week ahead. I'm skipping chapter 2. That's for your own joy, the ripple effect. You'll see what happens when you're a person who shows up for other people want to do that for you. You get seen that way. That's what happens with Boaz. Okay, that's dessert. But here's the last part. The last part is about chavruta. I call it thought partnership and the widening of our Dalet Amot. Now, remember what we said, the second threat. The second threat was arrogance and a sense of over self-reliance. According to our tradition, the best way to learn is in chavruta. And the reason why is not just, again, because practically speaking, everybody comes with their own skill set. That's true. And that people can help each other out. That's true. But the reason why chavruta is so powerful and the best way to learn Torah is because when you're operating in a chavruta, and those people on this call who've been my students know this very well. This is what we work on in chavruta. We work on, I'm skipping the Gemaras, down here. This is what we work on. We work on supporting and challenging each other. So if I'm learning with Beverly, and I think that my job in chavruta is to develop the best argument and persuade her of it, then I'm not actually in chavruta, then I think I'm on the debate team, right? And I want to squash her idea, and I want her in the end to come back to class and be like, yeah, she's right. No! What happens in chavruta? Beverly comes up with a great idea. Sorry, you're the only face I see, right? And I say, wait, Beverly, can you tell me more about that? Can you explain that to me? Because I'm not sure that I understand it. Or she says an idea and I say, have you thought about that perspective? Because I'm not sure, right? And then at the end of the day, what happens? Beverly actually comes out better understanding her own ideas. So if you come into chavruta, God forbid, as we said, with the possibility of arrogance, it's not possible when you're learning the chavruta. It's not about you. It's about being there to help somebody else. And hopefully that person is reciprocating. So when you come out of a gorgeous, explosive chavruta session, you just feel more alive in all the best possible ways. And that's where Torah lives. That's where Torah lives. Torah lives when two people are together and creating a kind of companionship that doesn't allow for arrogance or for self-reliance. And that's another way of understanding what it means to live with friendship and to live with companionship. And I think on Shavuot, both in our modes as learners and teachers and in our modes as family members, which are pretty much the only people we get to interact with today, we have opportunities to deepen all of the benefits and beautiful brachot that friendship allows us.
Thank you. Okay.
Dr. Jacobowitz, how extraordinary was this? Thank you for not only are you the most amazing teacher to my children and to so many community members, you've really inspired us going into Shavuot and the important need for this kind of companionship, and it's fosters our growth. I encourage anyone, if you have any questions, to maybe chat them in, and maybe we can send them through to Dr. Jacobowitz if that's something possible to do. We're going to start the next year, but I just want to thank you so much for just giving us such beautiful Torah and really inspiring us forward. Yeah, that's fantastic. Really, great deal of